So our speaker today is Pat Goodwin. She is the co-founder of a company called Goodwin, and she is talking about you are the message, what separates you from someone else, and resumes that get read. So all of those things are related. The message is on your resume. How do you differentiate your resume? How do you make it pop out compared to all the hundreds of others? She knows what she's talking about. Prior to co-founding Goodwin, which is a career management firm, she entered the local Austin business market upon acquisition of Austin Career Consultants, Inc., Career Consultants Temporaries, which she ran as a thriving and profitable enterprise for nearly 13 years. She was then recruited to join DBM, which is Drake Beam and Morin, now Lee Hecht Harrison. Those are all staffing companies, outplacement services, which is Lee Hecht Harrison is a multi-million-dollar international outplacement and executive coaching organization. She worked with many senior high tech clients who were caught up in the dot-com bust of the late 90s, early 2000s. As managing consultant for the Austin office, she and her team of consultants were tasked with opening and operating 3 major career centers to accommodate large-scale layoffs in the Austin area. Pat is certified in, I'm going to say this is Lominger. Please correct me if it's wrong, Pat. Lominger Career. And is it, how do you pronounce it? Is it Lominger?
Lominger.
Okay, great. She is certified in Lominger Career Leadership Architect and trained in I Speak Your Language assessment. She is a certified personnel consultant and life member of the Texas Association of Personnel Consultants. As co-founder of Goodwin, she continues to share her unique know-how and enthusiasm, ensuring customers and clients receive exceptional personal services. Let's give a very warm welcome to Pat Goodwin.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you so much. And I'd like to first thank Shannon for inviting me to speak today, as well as helping me along the way with this presentation. I want to thank Kathy. Your reputation is synonymous in the industry, tremendous reputation throughout the Austin area, and has been for so many years. So thank you again. I'm excited to speak to the group today and hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to talk about resumes. It may be something that you've heard over and over again, but I hope that I can bring you a couple of nuggets that you can take away. I heard a professional speaker speak one time and say, if I can feel like I've left the presentation leaving just a couple of good things to remind the audience about, I feel like I've done a good job. So maybe there'll be a couple of things that you can take away. And let's take a look at you are the message. What does that actually mean? To me, it means you from head to toe. What are you presenting? Who you are? What separates you from someone else?
Pat, could you lower your camera just a little bit so we can see more of your face?
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
There we go. Oh,
Perfect.
good. Okay.
Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. What separates you from someone else? And I want you to be thinking about that, your uniqueness that you bring. And I may be preaching to the choir. I'm sure Kathy and the entire team has talked to you about this before, but let's just take some moments today to focus on that. And before we get started with the presentation, I'd like for you not to be looking at your resume during this presentation, but certainly jot down notes that come to mind and just write words down that you might want to talk to me about later as we go through. We will have question and answers at the end of the presentation. So let's begin by looking at the key points of a resume. It's your story. It's your resume. It's who you are. I had someone tell me years ago that when they looked at a resume, they want to know what you did, when you did it, and where, but they want to know how you think. The resume can tell your story. It can show your outcomes. So it should be powerful. It should be truthful, of course, but it should get the attention of the person who's looking at the resume. So I'm sure you've asked this question before and you've heard it many times. How long does a recruiter or an HR professional actually look at your resume? It's not very long. It's seconds. And I have read thousands of resumes. I'm sure Kathy has, and the team has there. But when I look at a resume, I look at it, I glance at it, I look at the first page. I want to look at the crisp, clean format. And then I look at the second page, if there is a second page. But I start at the back of the resume and read from the back forward. I have asked HR professionals throughout my career and hiring managers, how do you read a resume? And many of them have said that they do that as well, is they start at the back and move forward. So everything you have all the way through your resume is extremely important. And there are things that you should have on the resume, obviously, that showcase the value that you bring. Again, you are the message. So let's take a look at the resume development. There's an offering and then there's a verification. Your skills and your expertise should be highlighted. It's a value-based document. It should demonstrate your potential and contributions to the company. And it should summarize your key skills, core competencies, and the knowledge relevant to the position. I'm sure that you are being taught to research the company, research the job description in detail, and then what is your resume saying that reflects what the company is looking for. So again, the value-based document. The verification is extremely important to supporting what your documentation says by demonstrating your professional experience and your work history, your education, training, all that you've done in your career. It might be certifications. Thank you again, and I truly apologize for my technical difficulties. As I mentioned earlier, you are the message. Please keep that in mind. Wherever you are, meeting people from head to toe, you are the message. So how you conduct yourself, and then we're going to talk about resumes, actually what separates you from someone else. So the next slide, Shannon, will be the key points of the resume. As I mentioned, your story, your resume, your outcomes. So important to reflect who you are. I've been told so many times that when a resume is read, whether it be an HR professional or hiring manager or recruiter, they want to know what you've done, when you've done it, and where. But they really want to know how you think. So the resume can reflect your story. And then it should showcase the few things that you want to convey in your resume. So next slide, please. The resume development is the offering. What are you trying to portray? Some people say, well, I'm trying to sell something. Well, you are. You're selling yourself and you're selling your background and expertise. It should be crisp and clean and jump off the page. And it can't be too overdone. And I'm sure Kathy talks to you about not being too overdone by too many action verbs, but we'll get into that in just a moment. But the knowledge that you want to convey summarizes your key skills and your core competencies. And when I say core competencies, that goes back to what separates you from someone else. I'm a certified Lominger core competency presenter, and the core competencies are based on about 63 competencies that each of us have. And as we go through this presentation, one of the things I'd like for you to do is to jot down, not looking at the resume, as I mentioned, let's don't focus on the resume, but jotting down competencies that you truly believe separate you from someone else. And if any of you have been through the core competency Lominger training, maybe we can talk about that at the end. But the verification on the resume is also evidence of what you've done, your work history, the training that you've taken, the certifications that you've done. And we focus on developing resume statements by the SAR methodology. And some people call it EAR. I think Dell Computer calls it EAR, Event Action Result. Some companies call it STAR, Situation Task Action Result, or PAR, PAR, Performance Action Result. And we work with a SAR methodology. Always put on the resume and verify. Do not put anything on the resume that you cannot prove. So the next slide, please. This is something that you probably may be already doing, but what we have found that grabs attention, and that's one thing that you want to do for a resume, is what can you say on the resume at the very beginning to grab the attention, and maybe a quote below your header of something that someone has said about you. And this is an actual quote from someone that I've worked with. I've changed her name, but let's just look at this. And what does this say to you about this person? Margaret is an exceptional leader who has strong and verbal communication skills. If we needed a new initiative implemented, I knew we could count on her to plan, organize, and execute the project flawlessly. She is an individual of the highest level of integrity and honesty. I recommend her without reservation. And then that person would put their name and their title and their company. Now that's a little long. You may not need anything that in depth, but if I were looking for someone who is a project manager or someone that could head something or lead something, might be an administrative assistant, it might be someone that I need to lead something, I would read that and think that, wow, and this person is giving me her name or his name, title, and company, and that's probably one of the references I'll check. So another thing that we talked about, and I heard Kathy mention this, is the titles that you might put, instead of the word summary, you might put 2 or 3 headers right below the quote that would indicate the areas that you're interested in. And you would capitalize these. I just put 2, project management / management or manager, and then human resources. So then your summary is going to be 3 or 4 sentences that talk about your areas of expertise and what are those that you've written. And I'm sure you've spent lots of times. I kind of think I may be preaching to the choir, because I think your summary, as you will know, would be written very strongly. And it should say something about the work that you do. I have read so many resumes, and I think summaries can be too long. Only 3 or 4 sentences if you can get that. One of the things that I'm asking quite often is, I heard you mention, Kathy, open to relocation, and that's something you could add. U.S. citizen, you could add in the summary. So we move down on this one slide. Again, I want you to focus on what actually separates you from someone else in that summary. And you might want to review your summary again. And then it also illustrates your range of abilities that match.
In this mode, I cannot.
I'm sorry?
Oh.
You okay?
Yes, sorry.
Okay. That matches your job description and the unique knowledge. Now, we're going to have a handout, several handouts at the end of the presentation that I think you'll find of great value, and I'm happy to share those with you about maybe matching job descriptions with information. So next slide, please. Identifying your accomplishments. Again, I'm sure I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but what are my true accomplishments? Was I recognized for those? Did I exceed expectations and goals or quotas? Write those down. Review your resume again later, but have you really exemplified in your resume what you've done as far as true accomplishments? Did you reduce costs or increase profits? They love metrics on resumes, so you need to be able to show those. And if you can't remember, there are people that would probably help you remember what you actually did and what was the result of the accomplishment. Did you show initiative? Did you show creativity, problem-solving ability? Are you strategic in your thinking? training, leadership, mentorship. Again, the resume not only shows what you did, when you did it, and where, but what are the exceptional qualities that you bring in demonstrating that on your resume. So again, it's not just a rundown of what you did, responsible for. Did I make a difference? And this is a really good question. Did I make a difference when I entered the job market or entered the job? And what impact did my performance have on the team or the department? So as you went into the company that you've been with, what impact did you have on that team? What did you bring to them? It could be clear communications. So many people tell me that a huge issue still is not communicating well within the team. So what did you bring to the team or the department? And again, were you recognized for your work? Did you receive an award? So I hope that's clear, and I hope that next to the last check there will help you to really stop and think about what are you saying on your resume. So next slide, please. Okay, your accomplishment bullets. And this is just with the SAR story, and you might use it in a different way of PAR or STAR. But the situation, when, where, and for whom. What was the goal of the situation or problem? And what made it a challenge? What did you do to help bring about the resolution? How big or complex was it? In other words, the scope of work. So that's the situation. We're going to have an example in just a moment. But as you take actions, what did you do? What decisions did you make? And what actions did you take in order to help create the resolution? And then what are your results? The results are so important, and so many people put a result, but then I always ask them, tell me about the 10,000-foot result. I want to know the rest of the story. As Paul Harvey used to say, I want to know the rest of the story. So we talk it out. We talk about that particular accomplishment, and I really dig deep into what it was, what actions they took, and what was the result. And then how did you or the company measure your impact? And as you probably have written your accomplishment statements, oftentimes you can put the results first, because that may have a bigger impact. Again, it's your story. So what do you want to say in that bullet? Situation, action, result. But it could be that you want to put saved the company $10 million by, and then go into the detail. Next slide, please. Okay. An effective accomplishment statement. It really provides specific details to the reader to see you in action. And that's, again, how you're thinking. And that's so important, because they can read the resume and kind of feel like they know you as a person. It quantifies or qualifies your work, and it shows the scope of work. And I have also worked on accomplishment statements where there's 2 sentences within the one statement. And sometimes it's necessary to divide it into 2 sentences, but we try to get it into one if we can. But it's depending on your level, what your position is, and how much do you want to say. It also is selling your important skills, and it has to be tied to the claim in the summary. Anything you say in the summary has to be verified in the rest of the accomplishment statements of your resume. So I've had this statement years ago. I heard the so what? So what? So you write your resume and someone looks at it and they say, so what? What difference did you make? When I look at a resume, I look at it and then I turn it over. And then I turn it back over and I look at it again. And I want to see again what the resume is telling me. I've looked at so many resumes over the years, but if I'm really interested in reading a resume, I want to be able to take a look at it. And you may ask someone close to you, colleague, when I'm sending you a resume, I want you to take a look at it, turn it over, and turn it back over, and then tell me what you saw. And I hope that you'll do that, because I think that can be helpful. It's very in-depth, the resume. You've got to take the time to do it right. You're always tweaking it, I realize it, and you get tired of looking at it, but all of these little points might make a difference in your getting the interview. So again, the summary or accomplishment statements can be only maybe 2 to 4 lines long. And it's not responsible for. I've seen resumes, and people have gotten so much better about this over time, but responsible for, worked with many high-tech computer programmers that started every sentence with responsible for, or developed. And so we have to get unique and creative, or participated in. Not participated is a passive word, and that's something we should use. But look at these action verbs. And again, you're going to be able to get a list, a wonderful list at the end of this that Shannon will put out there for you to be able to look at. But streamlined, you built, you led, you saved, you organized. What did you do, and what is the value that you brought? So thank you, Shannon, for showing the next slide, please. So writing an accomplishment statement, we'll just take a look at this little, when it comes up. Here we go. Look at this. You think about what you did. Well, I created a new program for a department. Okay, I created a new program for a department. So the next part, Shannon, the second attempt, and you think, okay, I created a new program for the engineering department managers in order to train managers and team managers. So that's more of the depth of what I did. That's the situation, and that's kind of the action in a way. But let's look at when you think deeper into what you did, that 10,000-foot point of view of writing an accomplishment statement, created and implemented specialized technical training to over 25 engineering managers. And Kathy's thing is right there. And 150 team members across Texas for a 24/7 operation, ensuring confidentiality and consistency of delivery. So you as the project manager, you as the program manager, you as the computer specialist was writing the technical training, and look at the more depth that this is when they thought more about writing this statement. And I hope that you'll be able to look back at your resume and say, is there something more than I can say that will jump off the page and not have what we call a so what resume, but something that is really impactful. Okay, next, please. Okay, the resume components, again, we can go through this. I'm anxious to talk to you about your resume, but the resume components are, I feel like I'm speaking to the choir, but again, all caps at the top. Your numbers, we don't put addresses anymore on resumes, but we put Austin, Texas, we put contact number, LinkedIn, email address is all important. If you want to put a quote from a former manager or colleague or customer, I think that would go over very well. And I think it could be something that you could get someone to do that would be happy to write something about you that's in a positive. And then if you want to put 2 or 3 headers or titles about the specific jobs, you can change this per job, but project/financial manager or human resources. So I just put those in there, but they could vary, obviously, depending on the type of position that you're looking for. And then you have your summary of qualifications, or your summary, and that could be the 2 or 3 sentences. And then what I really hope that you're doing, but a section called core competencies. And you can think about who your core competencies are, and the list that I'm going to share with you guys, I think will really help. But columns of 3, it could include your technical skills, but it could be columns of 3 of what your true core competencies are. And they need to be factual. It could be customer focus. It could be integrity and trust. It could be decision quality. And I'm pulling from my Lominger training of what core competencies really are. But if you begin to think about what separates you from someone else, you are the message. So what would your competencies be? And you could look at the job description that you're applying for and see something that they are asking you to do. And it could be process improvement. It could be project management. And you can't get it all on the top 3 lines of the header there, but the competencies could really list, and they will look at that because you've got your quote, you've got your summary, and if you have your competencies, it's going to really stand out right there, the top third of the page. And then your titles are, and your accomplishments are your company name. And here's another thing that we do. Sometimes we put the title of your job, the title of your position, and not the company first. It depends on what it is you're going for. So you can be a judgment of that, and Kathy could certainly advise you, but it has worked many times for one of the clients that I'm working with to put their title first, and then the job, or the company, the title first, and then the name of the company and the dates to the right. We tuck in the dates as you change positions within the company. We change the dates and tuck those in next to the title. The one total date from, say, 2010 to 2019 would be to the far right, but then the other dates as you progress within the company would be next to those titles. Of course, your education, training, volunteering. I'll discuss that a little bit with you. If you have a degree, you want to put that. We put the name of the degree first, and then comma, and the city and state. I've had a lot of resumes where they just put their degree and then they name the college, but I don't necessarily know where that college is, even though I may know University of Texas, comma, Austin, Texas. So you've got to put that, your dates, and there is also conversation just yesterday about a degree that they got years ago, but so many companies are wanting to know the date of the degree. So I leave it up to your judgment as to whether you put older dates. I kind of think you should, because they want to really know who you are. And I know we're trying to hide age, so it's up to you as to whether you put that or not. But training can go down there, and you can have subheadings like education / training / volunteering all on one line, or you can have it, if you have room on your resume, to have it underneath each other. And technical skills is very important. Up above on that on the first page, I might have mentioned, or I didn't mention, but I should have, is that if you can't get them all under the core competency section, you might have another small section of technical skills on the first page, because if they're looking for someone who has the technical competencies, then you want to be able to show that on that first page. So you can put it on the second page as well. It depends on how you want to present yourself. But again, awards, commendations, authored papers, patents, all very important. Presentations, what have you done that will make a difference in them looking at your resume for the job that they look at hand? So again, the header on the second page, you may be putting it on the bottom of the second page or the top of the second page, but whichever works well. But I hope that captures you the meat of what the resume should look like. And if we could go to the next slide, please. So they should not include things that you already know, but let's just take a look at this. Health, marital status, birth date, photo. I actually got a resume early in my career of a gentleman who had sent his baby picture. It was a volume of information years ago, and I didn't laugh about it. I thought, wow, this is really something. He has gone to so much trouble of showing the true person. Of course, that's not the way it is anymore, but we don't do that. And then I want to talk about salary requirements. This should not be included on that. However, when you do a state application, maybe you have to fill in salary requirements, and you could put the word range. But typically on a resume, you do not put salary requirements on the resume. And then it's a rule of thumb that you don't go back past 10 or 15 years. But again, in today's marketplace, you probably have very valuable experience that goes past the 10-year mark. So what we have done before, if the resume on the first part of the first 10 years of your experience gets a little lengthy, or you're going into maybe the second half of the second page, you could put prior experience and then just list the companies without the dates necessarily. And again, I work with so many people, but it depends on the individual person. So getting advice and getting someone else to review that would be very helpful. But I think that that's up for discussion about how many years you put. So you don't want to leave off previous jobs unless they really are not pertinent. And I have worked with clients who have had 2-month jobs in a summer. And we do have a tendency to eliminate that because it just wasn't pertinent to your career. If you're filling out a state application, I think they want to know everything since selling Girl Scout cookies, but you've got to be able to look at that resume and make sure that the dates are consistent. But if there is a position that really was just for a very, very short length of time and it's not in your career field, it's a judgment call, and we will help that client make the decision about whether to add that or not. Graduation dates, as I mentioned, if over 15 years, some companies insist on knowing those. State government, again, it's up to you. It's a judgment call, but I think we're also very concerned about age discrimination, so you may not want to add the date of your graduation. If you did attend college, but you did not graduate from college, I was a late bloomer, got my degree later on, and if they saw my resume now, they'd say, wow, she is so young. But I did go back, and I'm very proud of that fact. But if you don't want to put the date of your graduation, that's up to you. But if you did attend college, let's make sure that you did put attended University of Texas from the date to the date, major, and you could put the major underneath that. And I'm sure Kathy has really talked to you all about that and educated you about that. So I would not put references available upon request. I'm going to share with you, I believe, a very unique reference sheet sample that we use. And again, it ties into that quote at the top of your resume, and you'll see that reference sample that I think will be quite helpful. And again, it's part of the package. So you are the message, you are the package, and that includes references. So again, let's go maybe to the next slide, and I'm anxious to hear if any of you have questions later. I'll just go through this quickly: a professional format, a subheader specifying areas of expertise. You could have that, as we mentioned, and a summary of qualifications, a short paragraph. Your technical skills there, as I mentioned, and the core competency section, education. And then we look at, I have someone who put education on the first page just this week, and his education should have been on the second page, and we moved it. But there are times that, especially if you're a new grad or you're a recent grad, or your education is specific to the industry, you can certainly use your good judgment and maybe have something on the first page about having your education. But typically we put that at the bottom. And then we have professional experience. I mentioned here organization, all caps with dates to the far right. The reason I put discussion there is I just talked about it. You may want to put your job title first. It depends on what your experience is and what your background is. And if you are promoting your job title and you haven't been with the company as long as you would have liked, then it's a judgment call. You might put your title first, but then you'll have 1 or 2 lines of your job responsibilities. One of the things that we have also done is put a website for the company that would direct the reader of the resume directly to the company you worked for, or you might put a description of who the company is. There's so many companies that are short names, and we worked with a company a long time ago. It said car.com. It was well before its time, and it was looking at cars before online, and that was well before its time. That's years ago. But you might want to put something on there about the company, again, if you have the room, and 3 to 4 bullets about your accomplishments. And I've read resumes where there's 15 bullets under the most recent position, and they're not going to read it. I can assure you they're not going to read all that unless someone wants to pour in depth with you in an interview over all those accomplishments. I would encourage you to cut them down, look at the ones that are maybe not important. If you don't want to do that task anymore, maybe make a decision about taking it off. Again, it's your resume, it's your product, but what can you do to have the most impactful accomplishment statements on your resume and not have so many that they're just not going to read them? And then you have your organization for the next company, and I just put that in there. So you've got your first company you worked for, and following down with the titles, your promotions of different titles, and then the next company that you worked with, and who they were, and city, state, and dates, and you going down to the rest of your career, again focusing on what you're writing in those statements. And I've had so many people over the years tell me that they found something deep into your resume prior to the most recent position that you have had that drew their attention to the resume. When I was staffing for one of the career centers, the Applied Career Center, I was hiring consultants, and I had to hire close to 25 or 30. And I looked at a lady's resume that had been sent to me, and Kathy reminded me of that when she mentioned Toastmasters. She had been in HR. She had had some training. You know, we were hiring consultants to work with people just like you who had lost their jobs. And that's what brought me in, Toastmasters. And I met with her. She is the most wonderful lady. I've kept in touch with her. She was like a diamond in the rough. She blossomed throughout her entire several years that she worked with me at DBM. And she ended up being one of the lead consultants at the Career Center. She had the knowledge. She knew a lot about HR. She just had not had training specifically. But her Toastmasters experience gave her the confidence to work with clients. And I was really, really proud of her throughout her career there. And she's done well in the community. So again, what is it on volunteering that you have on your resume, or what are the organizations that you have that might catch someone's attention? Another quick nugget, I had a lady who had been shipmate of the year on her ship. She was in the Navy, and she was applying for a job for this big company in out of state. And that's what grabbed the attention of the person reading the resume. She ended up getting the job. But think about what the leadership qualities it took to be shipmate of the year on that ship. It's just amazing. Eagle Scout, so many things that you've done in your career that still will carry huge weight on the resume if you've got some type of organization such as that. And we don't put political affiliations, of course, but your education, publications, if you had patents, those are all very important. Again, technical skills can be mentioned if you want to repeat them or have them at the bottom of the page. It's depending on you and what you're looking for. So let's go to the second slide. I hope I'm not talking too fastly. And then we're getting to the end here, but I think you all know how to make your resume online ready. And you can just look at this, keyword nouns for industry-specific skills. Of course, your LinkedIn, and I'm sure Kathy teaches an excellent, excellent LinkedIn class. You have your standard sections there. We use Arial Times, Calibri, I can't ever say that, but what is the typeface that you're using and what is compatible? Things may have changed. Some people are telling me they're not using time anymore. So again, listen to the experts there, but the font size, maybe 10 to 14% points. Take a look at can't be too small, can't be too big. It's so important to have all of this looking so beautifully. And then your contact information on each page. So I think we're ready for the next slide, and we can ask questions as we go through that. But I want to talk about a cover letter. So this is one of the handouts that I'm sharing. It's a cover letter that gets attention. And again, I had yesterday working with a gentleman who's changing careers, as a matter of fact. And he's looking at an agency, and it said cover letter included. And a lot of folks are saying, just submit your resume. I would encourage you to go ahead and submit a cover letter, even if they don't have not requested a cover letter, because it can really get attention. So this cover letter is very unique. It talks with a heading, and it talks again about the position, and it addresses, if you can address it to a very specific person, that that's important. But if you do not know, you could always say, "Dear human resource professional," not resources, human resource professional, or "Dear hiring manager." You want to put the position posted and the job number. And I think you'll really like that cover letter sample. But maybe you could say something in that cover letter about the company, not about me. Or I've seen too many cover letters over the years. Every sentence starts with I. I. Take out the I's. If you have to start one sentence with I, try to put it in the paragraph. But do a little research on the company and maybe compliment the company or compliment the person that you have spoken to or the recruiter. And you might say something to them. "Thank you so much for speaking with me about the such and such position." And you might look at the company and look at something that they've done. Look at their stock price. Look at who they are, or maybe a product, and say something unique about the company in the first sentence. And then you can go in and say, instead of "I am interested," you could say, "The position posted for technical writer is of great interest to me." Or you could say, "Don Adams referred me to you and the position posted." Express your reason for your interest in the employer and the position. There are so many companies that my grandson is a junior at A&M, and he's looking for an internship in engineering this summer. And he just made mention yesterday that one of the companies that he's applied for, he met someone who works there. And he was so excited because she said, "Oh, this is a great company. People really care about each other, and it's a real team. And I think you'd really enjoy working here." And she said, "I'm going to make sure that your resume is in the queue." So she was going to go back and make sure that she looked to see if his resume happened to be listed there for consideration for a summer intern. So you can find out. I've had clients who have gone and actually sat in the parking lot of a company to see what time people leave, what people wear, what people look like. Are they smiling? Just searching out the company, not shadowing them, but maybe a little bit. And then again, the position posted for the company that you're looking for. So in the body of this unique cover letter, you will see on one side your requirements. And then you look at that job description and you put degree, or they may say 5 years experience. And on the right, you'll say my expertise, your requirements, my experience. So you can mirror bullet by bullet what it is they're looking for. And I'll be anxious to see if any of you have used this format, but it really, really helps. And they can't help but look and say, wow, this is, instead of in a huge cover letter, you are reminding them of what it is that they say they need and then what it is that you have. So it's a really unique way to maybe showcase your experience and then making the connection between their needs and your qualifications. And you could go on down to everything that they are looking for. One of the things that you may already know, I'm sure you do, but you could look at the bottom of every job description, and oftentimes they actually post their core competencies. I know Dell does. And so many of them have been through the law manager training. And so you look down at the bottom of that and they look action-oriented or results-driven or writing or presentations, or what are the core competencies that they need. And if you have those core competencies, then you want to either add that in the body of the resume or somehow in the letter. But you want to close it up with a request for a meeting and that you will follow up. And in today's market, everything is different. A lot of Zoom interviews. And if you can follow up and if you can get the name of the person or the name of the manager, will be very, very helpful. And of course, we're not talking about networking today, but that is the number one thing that you can do. I look at it as a pyramid. If you can get to the top of the pyramid and go through the networking instead of going through the bottom with posting, HR, manager, if you can get someone to come in from the top to recommend you, then they will go in and say, HR, pull this resume. I want to make sure you look at it. So I think that's the last slide. If we could look at that. if we have question and answers, and we have wonderful handouts that I'm happy to share, and I think Shannon will post those later. But Kathy, I may need your help to answer some questions, but are you open to us asking the audience if they would like to?
Absolutely. Put your questions in the chat box if you want. If it's a long question, you can unmic. I have a question. I'll start it off.
Yes, Kathy,
How do
and
you
thank you.
how do you feel about an accomplishment section at the top of a resume?
I love
Where
that.
Okay, where they put like
Yes,
three or four of their primary accomplishments,
yes.
and then do they reword those and repeat them later on, or do they just put their main accomplishments at the top and
That's a very,
some
very
accomplishments at the bottom?
good question. That's a very good question. So if you want to put accomplishments below your core competencies, you could center or left justify the word all caps accomplishments, and then you would have certain statements. I worked with a gentleman who was a hedge fund
Hedge
manager,
fund.
and he had done so many things for so many different organizations. So he wrote his accomplishments, and to the right he put the name of the companies where he actually did that particular exercise for. So that's a very good question, and I totally agree with that. And then when you get to if you're referring to the accomplishments about what company you did it for, then they're going to be able to read the resume when you get into your experience and say, okay, he did this accomplishment up here at this company down here. And so you may want to say other things in the body of the experience, but I'm so glad you asked that, and we do that quite a bit. So thank you. Did I answer
Good.
your question?
You did, and I like that feature as well. Sometimes, anyway, I like it, especially if they're only going to look at the top half of the resume. You get that accomplishment away from page 2 and get it,
That's
stuck up at
correct.
the top.
Very
And
good.
Shannon is finally able, now that she's not presenting anymore, she's
Okay.
sharing your handouts in the chat box.
Oh, good.
So she's got the accomplishment examples, the action verbs for resumes.
Okay.
She's got the reference sheet samples. So
Okay.
all of
The
your
cover
handouts
letter.
are.
In the cover letter.
Cover letter's not up
Coming.
there yet.
Okay.
Maybe it's still coming.
Okay.
And Sherry says, I click on these, but I can't save them. When you click on them, can you open it up, Sherry, and save it to your computer? Are you not able to? Here comes the sample. The thank you letter sample we've
Okay.
got. Shannon, do you have the cover letter? Or was that, Pat, was that separate? The cover letter, was that in your
Well,
handouts?
if she did not get that, I will send it to you, because that is so important for you all to see that.
Okay.
I'll see if I have it. I think you may have sent it in a separate email, but
I could have. Yeah, go ahead and check.
to me again would be a good idea, but I'll look. Thank you.
Okay.
Yay, now we can finally
Thank
hear
you.
Shannon's voice.
All right. And thank you so much, Shannon and Kathy, again.
Okay, not a problem. Shannon, you might help us with this one. Oh, I guess, let's see. Sherry's asking if we can send them via email. If we save the chat, let me see. Let me work on that and see if that is.
They will be
something
linked
else.
in the newsletter. So just watch for next week's newsletter. I'll have Pat's slides.
Oh,
There'll be
okay.
a link to
All
each
right.
document.
All right. She did tell us that earlier. I'm sorry. My bad. All right. And
If anyone would like for me to send them directly, do you mind them doing that? They can contact me. My phone number was on there, so
of course not.
I didn't say anything about anyone contacting me if they want me to talk with them personally, but I'm happy to do that.
No, that'll be fine. And I have another question. So many people are struggling now during the whole COVID thing. I did see a resume yesterday that I thought did an interesting thing. He had a section under experience where he had COVID jobs, and so all the little things that he'd done, to pick up some money here and there during this crisis, he had that in a separate
Oh.
category, which I thought was pretty cool.
Uh-huh.
Also, if you've been volunteering during COVID, I think
Yes.
that I would really highlight that. That takes
Yes.
somebody special who will go out and help others
That's
during
true.
this time.
That's true. So if you've had a gap, I think you're referring to the fact that if you've had a gap during COVID and your resume says maybe March of 2020, and you've not, what have you been doing since March of 2020? And you have done some online training or you've been busy with other jobs, I think that's important to fill that gap. You're right, Kathy.
Okay, now speaking of gaps, I'm not sure if I didn't think you covered this. If you did, I apologize if I didn't catch it. So somebody who's got a longer gap, like let's say a 2-year gap,
Mhm.
that they took off to deal with kids or family members or personal stuff. How do you suggest they deal with that on a resume?
I think they should put it in there and put sabbatical, um, cared for elderly parent or sabbatical, return to school. Could be a sabbatical for whatever reason. I have someone I know that traveled for 3 months. It was her opportunity to do that in between jobs, and she just took a gamble and said, I'm going to go travel. She went to Europe. She was gone for 3 months, and she put that on there, and more power to her.
Okay, all right. That's usually what I advise too. We're right in sync.
Good.
So this person has asked a question that I'll bet you can easily give this answer. Can a cover letter be more than a page?
Well, it could be. I'd like to, everything's online nowadays, so I don't think they're looking at pages. Don't you agree, Kathy? It's, even a resume that goes to 3 pages, I don't know that they can tell it's 3 pages, maybe, but I think you could probably be okay with that if you've got a lot to say. So it's just your judgment call as to whether you feel like it's too long. But I think the format of that cover letter that I'm going to have to resend and let Shannon post that will help you to be able to look at how much you could get on that first page.
It's in there, Pat. I found it.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Oh, good, good, good.
And,
Yeah, she just got it up there. Okay,
and
great.
are they able to see it?
Um,
Well, if they pull
Yes,
it
I
down,
can see it.
Okay.
they have to-
I'm curious, has anyone seen this format before, used this format before?
are you talking about the you need, I have, you need, I have, you need, I have, the 2-column thing?
The
Yes.
The T chart, the T format?
yeah.
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 I'm just curious as to whether they've used that before or they feel like that could be helpful.
I'm not seeing it. Is everyone
I
else seeing the cover
downloaded
letter?
it, so it must be in my downloads. Let me see if that's where it is.
Oh, here, okay. Okay. Got it.
Someone is saying they've seen this format work.
Yeah, it's an old format. It's been around a long time, but I think it's very helpful.
I do too.
And
And
in
I think
fact,
it's
we do a
There-
variation of that
Okay.
for the in the job scan.
great, great. Well, it's worked. It takes time for you to really study. What do you want to say? And here's a question for the audience. If there's a skill that you don't have and they're requiring that, it could be that you want to put that as a bullet and put training in progress, or maybe make indication that you're getting up to speed on that. Yeah, it's not a format that's new, but it has still works.
Okay. Any other questions? This was very comprehensive, and I know you kept saying you're preaching to the choir, and you're right. These people are really knowledgeable about job search stuff because they've been going to so many different job clubs and different classes, but everybody, me included, can always learn new things.
Mm-hmm.
And almost every speaker that we have teaches me something, and I'm like, oh, I never thought of that, or wow, I hadn't, that's something that's really different, or the rules have changed, or whatever. Here's a question. Are there any special nuances to prepping a resume and or a cover letter if it's to a large enterprise versus a small mid-sized company?
Well, I think the cover letter should definitely mention something about that large enterprise company, complimenting them, letting them know that you've researched the company, making some unique points. So in a smaller organization, I think they would feel the same way, that if you could make mention of, in the cover letter, of who they are, and that you know who they are and that you've done research. I don't know. Kathy, you have anything to add to that?
I think pointing out something specific about the company that shows that you've done some research is really smart, where you say, you know, I see that with your recent acquisition, you're
Yes.
expanding and you're hiring new people. I'm very excited that we have a company that's you know, growing during these difficult times. Uh, Something like that, where you can show that you're aware of what the company challenges are, you know, ramping up or you know, scaling or something like that, or even downsizing and having doing more, having to do more with a smaller team or
Well,
whatever. That you
right, and it could,
appreciate their
yes,
problems.
right, and it could be a new software that they've developed that you're interested in.
Exactly, some kind of achievement, and
Someone
then
said they needed a nap. I hope I haven't put y'all to sleep.
really.
Just me. I am so not production, and so next time Paul will be production. If I, you know, if we have
I
a
don't know what
non-savvy,
happened to me this morning.
yeah,
So,
well, you're not a tech savvy speaker. I'm certainly not a tech savvy person on the side. So we'll make sure Paul has any slides in future. But thank you. It's been wonderful.
It
well, it's
all
been
went. We got to do it. All worked, so that's
it
okay.
was a true pleasure. I wish everybody best wishes, and I know you're going to be extremely successful moving forward. And if I can help you personally, just let me know.